President Obama and Congress reached a deal to fund the government for the next 6 months, cutting $38 billion in spending. So a government shutdown was avoided, but the next challenge is here. Mr. Obama will lay out the plan for reducing the nation's deficit on Wednesday. A debate over the debt ceiling and how citizens are taxed are two key elements in the conversation. Our next guest says this next phase is going to be more heated and more dramatic than anything we saw last week. DeHaven is with us now. He has been behind the scenes as a budget policy advisor to two senators. He is currently at the Cato Institute. He is with us now from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Tad, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We know the president has a number, a dollar amount for deficit reduction. What do you think it is?
I don't know what the number is going to be, but I do have to say it's rather bizarre that less than 2 months since he had his budget release in February, just a few months after his deficit commission came out and made recommendations, that he's now getting on board. So I'll be curious to see. I imagine it'll be some sort of gimmicks on the spending side and probably a tax increase on the revenue side.
All right. Well, speaking of taxes, I mean, this is going to complicate any discussion, I assume. What are the choices? I mean, can we see of that? We know the president is going to raise this idea of taxing people more, people who make more than $250,000 a year. What kind of choices, what kind of horse trading are we going to see?
He's not going to bring up a VAT now going into 2012. I think everybody needs to look at these various battles in the context of 2012. So he will continue to play the class warfare card, even though this country has one of the most progressive tax systems in the world. And I think actually what he should do is take a look at the governor of New York up there, who recognizes that you can't punish producers. You have to go after the consumers, and that's the government. We have record levels of spending. The president has proposed continued record levels of spending. Republicans are not going to go along with tax increases. So I think this is a strategic move, this whole idea of he's going to put a plan out since he couldn't do anything 2 months ago, to try and change the debate in his favor and again play the class warfare card and try to
Tad, I know,
basically beguile.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, I know Republicans want to make the argument that if you tax the producers more, you hurt small business. But the reality is, whether or not that's true, I mean, the reality is even if you do tax the quote-unquote rich more, it ends up just being a drop in the bucket as far as deficit reduction goes, right?
We could tax every single penny out of the pockets of the richest people in this country, and it still would not solve our long-term issues. And the administration needs to drop the class warfare card and square with the American people that it is basically the middle-class programs, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, that are the biggest drivers of our deficits.
Tad, I don't want to let you go without talking about the debt ceiling. I know you've written extensively on the subject. I mean, is the U.S. Going to default? Is the government going to default?
No, neither side is going to let that happen. This is sort of like a schoolyard fight where you have two groups kind of circling each other with their pocket knives exposed. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to get stabbed. And certainly the alarmism coming from the administration is pretty peculiar, considering back in 2005, President Obama went to the Senate floor as a senator from Illinois and said, this is a failure of leadership. I'm not going to raise the debt ceiling. Republicans have to be careful, but they need to extract some sort of blood here in terms of I would say spending reform, basically forcing the government to get itself under control, since these ladies and gentlemen seem incapable of doing it on their own.
This $14 trillion debt ceiling, you think the Republicans would raise it, but they're going to want to see what, Tad? What kind of cuts?
I think they're going to look for process reform. I've heard rumors that they'll try and get some sort of a vote on a balanced budget amendment. See, the problem with the Republicans have is they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. On the one side, they have the administration, they have Harry Reid in the Senate. On the other side, they have the Tea Party folks. And the Tea Party is the reason why John Boehner is now Speaker of the House. So he has to get a deal done to avoid a crisis, but at the same time, he can't come off looking as a wimp. And quite honestly, after last week's deal, getting $38 billion of cuts when we're running $1.6 trillion deficits, he does look a little bit wimpy right now.
All right, Tad, thanks very much. Tad DeHaven joining us there. He is with the Cato Institute. He was joining us there from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.